Welcome to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I've got a very special guest on the episode with me today. So welcome, Michael. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Johnny, thanks so much for inviting me to your show.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and it's always great for a fellow neuroencoding specialist and trainer and coach like yourself to come in, plus all the other experience you have in your life. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today, and I appreciate your time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So, just to give a quick introduction to Michael Pope. So, Michael is the CEO of Michael Pope Training. He's certified at the highest level for at John Maxwell as a trainer and coach, and he's also a self-confidence and personal development coach. So, Michael, what got you into this, and could you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you got to where you are today?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Johnny, I grew up as a natural introvert with a terrible self-image.
Mm,
My confidence was at an all-time low for years, really leading up into my early 20s. And I'll never forget, it was the fall of 1997 when I ran into a entrepreneur named Percy. And he had an amazing confidence and he just spoke differently. His outlook, his attitude was completely different from mine. And I remember asking him about it. And he gave me a book. That book was The Magic of Thinking Big. And that book was my first introduction into personal development. It took me a while to even read that book, right? He gave it to me and he would check in on me. And I was like, no, I hadn't got time with it. I made
mm.
excuses after excuses why I couldn't read it. And then finally, Johnny, he was like, well, okay, Michael, can you read one chapter for me? And it was chapter number 2 about excusitis, the failure disease. I read that chapter and it totally changed everything else for me. I mean, that book introduced me to affirmations and it introduced me to goal setting and other things that I use today. And that was back in 1997. And so that was the start of my journey of personal development.
Ah, awesome. So, a book had a big influence on you, and I like what you said about only reading a chapter and sort of breaking it down. So you made it a bit easier for you rather than trying to get the whole book, because sometimes we get into that whole paralysis by analysis of all these things we've got to do. So that made it a little bit easier, did it for you?
Yeah, because once I read that chapter, I mean, it was easy for me to read the rest of the book because I saw the value in it finally.
Ah, awesome. And were you able to go out and implement the stuff in it when you got it?
Yeah. And it wasn't overnight, right? It wasn't just
Mm.
one book that really changed my life, but that book kind of set me up to my introduction to other personal development authors, people like Napoleon Hill with Think and Grow Rich, and
Oh yeah.
John Maxwell with a lot of his books, and Maxwell Maltz, and there's other people in that industry, Brian Tracy. So I just started like just filling my mind up with personal development people, and it changed everything. Really, I think the first thing that the two main things that it changed for me was my language. So anytime I spoke, it was always positive words, and then it also changed my attitude. So when something would come up or happen, my attitude was now positive. It was more of a I can do it attitude. So I'd always look for solutions. And so now I love solving problems because I just have that positive attitude. I believe that I can do it.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of bombarding yourself with more and more information that it kind of transforms your thinking a little bit. That, yeah, that's interesting. You say that because I had a similar kind of situation where I was very much like wanting to learn. It started off for me wanting to be a better writer because I was just writing some fiction books, and then actually found, oh, this is a good resource. Oh, that book sounds interesting. Oh, that book sounds interesting. And then you get kind of into this journey, and there's no looking back really. When I find this whole getting to improve yourself and the fun of it as well, the fun of improving yourself as a human being. So yeah, I love how your journey was a knock on, and Think and Grow Rich, you said was one of the books as well.
Yes, by Napoleon Hill. Love that book.
Yeah, love that book. It's an interesting one. It's it's been out a while now, but
It's
yeah, it's good.
1937, I think.
1937, yeah, definitely decades ago. But I know it's a very popular book, and many people talk about it these days and say you must read this book. So that's the power of a decent book. But I'm always keen with kind of like books that what we implement changes our lives, but good information can really fill us up. So I know you're a John Maxwell, one of those really high level sort of coaches, and you work for John Maxwell. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the whole John Maxwell world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined the John Maxwell team back in November 2019. And so I had been reading John's books for years, and his books on leadership and his books on personal growth for years. And I finally had an opportunity to reach out and join his team. And I was very excited to be a part of his team, just as a regular trainer and coach. I mean, but then I quickly got immersed in that environment, and then I started adding value. So one of the things John talks about is that we're people of value who add value to other people. And so I started doing that in the organization, and then I quickly was asked to join their faculty to help train other speakers and coaches. And so that was a great honor right there, just having that closer proximity to John Maxwell. Because his books have really changed my life, because I love the simplicity in his books and how he gives you those applications, those little steps to do to really apply those changes. It's really been beneficial to me. So I absolutely love it.
Awesome. Yeah. John Maxwell, I've seen he's got so much material, and it's great to hear the value you're getting out of it. And I see obviously some of the things you share about how valuable it's been on your life. So one of the things we often talk about here, and kind of in our neuroencoding community as well. And for anybody who's not familiar with neuroencoding, that's where I sort of know Michael from. Neuroencoding, something that's owned and founded by Joseph McClendon, who I do mention quite a lot on this podcast. And it's about the process of getting your behavior to default to its best, so that you get your brain to sort of work in that way through changes in psychology, basically. So that's neuroencoding, just in case you're not as familiar to that. Now, there's something we talk about a lot in it, and it's role modeling, and role modeling in sort of three ways: with the beliefs you take on, your physiology, the way you move and go about life in that way, the way you stand, the way you breathe, that smiling, things like that, and then actually the syntax and the order you do things in as well. So did you find from John Maxwell you were able to take on some of that role modeling?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, I have access to a lot of different mentors. And so one example is just I love watching how John speaks from stage and how he really connects with his audience, right? Because he actually breaks a lot of the traditional public speaking rules. He might put his hands in his pocket, he might drink a sip of water, but everything he's doing is intentional, and he's actually connecting with the audience even deeper, on a deeper level. And so it absolutely amazes me. So I study his movements. I kind of study like the words that he says, and how he brings story or humor into his speeches. And I love it. So from that standpoint, absolutely. And then I love, we had an opportunity to like spend time with Joseph. And so just getting a better understanding of the importance of having like an established morning routine, that's rubbing off on me. Right. Every time I walk past a mirror now, I hear Joseph's words in my head saying, smile at yourself, right? Pat yourself on the back, say, I love you. Right. So, and I say those affirmations in the mirror, but it's just because of his influence of giving me that guidance. So absolutely.
Yeah, you reminded me of that as well. Yeah, it's something I do, and I don't, it's one of those things you kind of program yourself to do that you forget you actually even do it, if that makes sense. It's just so natural. It's and actually I added in the Mel Robbins high five in the mirror as well, that I heard her talk about with Brendan Bouchard. You just high fiving yourself as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But yeah, and it's kind of an important point, I guess, to make as well, is role modeling, but you're not becoming the person, but you're role modeling qualities that you'd like to bring more into your life. And They just got a belief and a way of doing it that actually can be beneficial to you to learn from. And yeah, that's cool how much you've kind of taken on board from John Maxwell and Joseph. And I think an important point is for confidence, you can role model, confidence as well. So it sounds like that was something you were able to pick up from John Maxwell, just to up your confidence even more. Is that would that be accurate to say?
Yeah, absolutely. From him and his other leaders, right? Because and I learned years ago about modeling and how I'm not trying to copy or emulate someone else,
Mm.
right? But I'm identifying their strengths that would be beneficial to me, right? And so if they do something, I'm like, oh yeah, I can add that to, my habits, my daily habits, the way they speak, the way they interact with people, right? How do they make people feel when they're around them, right? Those are the type of things I look to model. And I love it because, right, I no longer see people and I don't get that imposter syndrome like, man, I could never do what that person does.
Mm.
Instead, I just ask myself questions. I wonder how that person reads. Or I wonder how they study, or I wonder why they ask questions the way they do. And you're just learning from their good habits.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, love that point. Ask yourself those good quality questions as well. And have you found? You said obviously you started off with in this place where you felt you were very sort of introverted before this whole journey, and everything like that. Would you say the power of a peer group has impacted on your beliefs and your confidence as well? The people you've been surrounding yourself with.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I learned about association years ago. And in John's book, The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, he talks about the law of environment, how, who you surround yourself is who you become type of thing. And I'm big on that, right? So I am big on making sure that, the top 5 or 10 people in my life are people who are positive, people who are, they're future or vision focused, and they're achieving goals. And at the same point, I make sure that I've removed people from my life where I spend very little time with people who are negative, or people who are always talking about what they can't do. Like I just can't spend. I don't give them my energy, because it's so important being around positive
Mm.
people that are like accomplishing goals, and because it stretches me. I love being having accountability partners where if I'm not performing at my level, I mean, they're going to tell me, hey, is that your best, right?
Mm.
And pull me along. And I think we all need that. We all need that strong peer group to help us grow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's interesting. We I was talking about it the other day after. It's one of those moments when you go for a walk, you're reflecting, and you develop your own model. Or maybe it's not your own model. It's probably been around. But I was just thinking about peer groups the other day, and there's kind of the bottom level, which is just pure toxic. You don't want to be associated with those people, and those poor people have unfortunately inherited negative beliefs from somewhere.
Yeah.
But then you've got people, I believe, who are not toxic but just don't necessarily have the same values. Maybe you're into personal growth, they're not. They're their own person. You can't force someone else to change. That's fine, they're their own person. Then you've got people who are developing a little bit, but perhaps don't push you as much. And then you've got people who really, really push you. That can help. And I often think it's not about pushing people who aren't in that top level out of your life completely, because I've got family and friends like that
Mhm.
who are lovely people, but they're just, I need to make sure I do spend a lot of time with those people at the top level, or not top level, that people are really, really going to push me at the
Yeah.
top level, to the top level of my personal growth as much as possible. So, yeah, but yeah, I like what you said there about the peer group as well. And do you find that some people in your life may not necessarily be toxic or bad people? They're just not perhaps um, following the same values as you.
Absolutely. I mean, I have some great people that I may spend time with or talk with on the phone, but and like I said, they're positive people, but their positivity may be towards sports and what's going on there. And for me, I really don't follow sports a whole lot. Like it's just it's a very low priority for me. Like I'll watch, like if I have some downtime or something, I don't mind watching a game, but it's very low on my priority list. Like I'd rather read a book or listen to an audio program or some type of training and just gain a new skill versus spending 2 hours just being entertained.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, you got your own values when you said that. Just reminded me of how little football I've watched in the last 2 years, in the last 2, 3 years. Um, yeah, not I used to love football, but yeah, it's just sometimes you develop as a person, you change your habits as well. But yeah, no, that's love what you said on that. And so in terms of like information, you read quite a lot. Am I right? I think we were having a conversation, weren't we,
Yes.
beforehand? Yeah, you're a keen reader, and yeah, and kind of one thing that stuck to my mind was Jim Rohn and this quote: "Be the guard to the mind of your the door of your mind." Uh, and yeah, that's certainly something. And I guess that's something John Maxwell teaches about the information you take in quite a bit as well that you've learned.
Yeah, guarding that input, right? That's, I mean, and I know he learned it from other people like Jim Rohn and other people. I thought about that same thing, but how important it is to monitor, what's coming into your eye gate or your ear gate is so important. Because if you're, I know for me, when I'm in an atmosphere where I'm listening to like positive, whether I'm at a conference or if I'm just plugged in at home and I'm just constantly listening to audiobooks and things, it totally changes my state, right? It puts me in that confident state of mind, that I can do it attitude. And I find myself being more productive too when I'm like that. But on
Mm.
the same token, if I spend time listening to the news or what's going on over here, over there, right, and then it kind of puts you in that fear state almost, where you're like, man, I hope this doesn't happen, or I hope that doesn't happen, and I don't like being in that place.
Yeah, totally. The amount of times I knock the news on this podcast, it's unbelievable. So no, we're all for it here. But it's genuinely because I want people to feel good about life.
Hmm.
That's why I knock it, and I think it's one of the worst sources for
Yes.
information. And people might disagree with that, but that's just my personal experience. So, and again, I'm just here. We're just here as guides, as coaches,
Hmm.
that, help people think what's best for them, really. Um, so one thing I want to talk to you, obviously, sounds like you did a tremendous amount of growth in your life from when you got that first book, went to other books, and then went to John Maxwell programs, and various other things between there. And now you're one of the leaders in neuro encoding and being a great influence to us all. Thank you for your great leadership, Michael. Um, so what would you say about the power of someone investing in themselves in their personal growth?
Oh, that is so important. All right, I've been investing since 1997. I've been investing in my personal growth, from books, audio programs, weekend conferences,
Mm.
coach, mentors, coaches, you name it. Right? It's a I make it a priority for me. I like I and see this shirt. I probably had this shirt for 5 years, 5 or 6 years or so now. Right? I mean, it's like I don't spend a lot of money buying new clothes or things like that, but I buy new books or new courses on a regular basis because it's so important. All right. And I know that a lot of people think they can just get everything free from YouTube, and YouTube is a great place to go, but there's nothing like getting a good book and reading it, or getting somebody's course, or getting personal coaching. All right. You can spend time with someone, and even if I've read their book, 100 times, and asking them a question and they tweaking something, they're saying, well, yeah, I wrote this in the book, or I said this in my talk.
Hmm.
But really, in your case, you may want to consider doing this, right? It is that little tweak can change everything for you.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that. And one of my recent podcast guests, Peter Sage, is actually quite big in the he- one of the rare actually English people I do follow in personal growth. Mine are all American sort of heroes like Tony's and the Josephs of this world. But Peter has come in on and he said, obviously, when you pay attention as well. So it's So it's this
Yes.
commitment to you. And yeah, and although I appreciate, sometimes money is a challenge. Like, I mean, I can remember I invested in a business coach recently, and it was a big investment, but I remember just thinking Tony Robbins, 17 years old, wanted to go to all the go through Jim Rohn's programs, went to like several banks and asked for loans. They were all like, no, he kept going at 17 years old. I went, can I go to my bank? And that's just one example. Can I go to my bank, for this higher investment that's going to, you know, give me a lot back in return? Um, so yeah, I think the power of invest, and it's also, I don't know about you, Michael, but I always feel like it's kind of building a better relationship with myself by saying I'm worth it at the same
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things I've learned is if I am going to invest in it, I have to make sure that I apply it, right? So have a plan in place to apply that knowledge. Like I don't like just consuming knowledge just for the information. So one of my mentors taught me is that you learn a little bit and you do a little bit, right? Just make sure that you got that good balance of doing.
Yeah.
Because I meet so many people, especially even in our industry, that they're constantly consuming, going to this training, that training, but they're not doing anything. They're still stuck in neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Yeah. Knowledge is only stored information until you use it.
Mhm.
And we live in a information age. So, but the majority, quite a lot of people don't. Well, the majority of people, I think the stats were saying like only like, don't quote me on this, but something around like 10% of people are finishing their course to completion or something like that. So it's just information, learn a bit there, learn a bit there, rather than what you were saying, which I loved, which was learn a bit, implement, learn a bit, implement. So no, that's a great strategy and the way forward on that one. And I'm glad you emphasised the importance of investing on yourself as well. So that's great. And then even like the question, how do I afford it if it's something huge? Like I want to be a Tony Robbins Platinum partner. Now I'm not that position yet to afford it, but I am for sure making sure I've got a plan so I can be that platinum partner. So I love
Exactly.
I love what you said on that one. So as you sort of grew as well through your personal growth journey, what were some of the habits you've maybe touched on one or two already, but what are some of the habits you put in place to really build your self confidence?
Okay. So I'll tell you. So when I first started, I used to be, and like I'm still an introvert, but I used to be terrified of public speaking. So one of the first investments that I did was I joined Toastmasters International, and I started learning how to overcome my fear of public speaking. Right. It took a few years to do so, but I went from being terrified, gripping the podium, shaking like when we're reading my notes and all that, to feeling confident from stage, whether it's talking to a group of people or thousands of people. Right. Still have that level of confidence, but it's because I was willing to invest in myself and do the work. So that really helped out. Also, affirmations have been big in my life. I still use affirmations, even with our kids. My wife and I have three sons, and we've taught them affirmations. And every single night, we go through a series of Bible scriptures and affirmations before they go to bed. And anytime they're faced with any type of challenges, like recently, so my youngest will be 9 in a couple of days. And recently we were at a little place, a play place where they had like really, really high obstacles. And he was doing this one course, and he was up probably about 20 feet in the air, stuck, and he had to jump off. Like he was harnessed in, so it was safe. But fear attached him a little bit. So I had to remind him, hey, you can do it, right? You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, right? Just remind him of those affirmations that he's said a bunch of times. And then he jumped, and then once he did it, we celebrated him, me and his other brothers. But it's all that programming. And so those affirmations have been huge in my life.
So the sounds like a good mixture of taking action but talking to yourself. So working on that psychology and the words we're speaking out loud that are going into our mind, but also
Yes,
taking action. So a combination of that. Would that be accurate to say?
absolutely. and that's so important what you said, right? If you're going to say the words, you have to take the action to back it up, because that's part of integrity. All right. And so if I say I'm going to do it, I mean, I have to make sure I do it, at least to the best of my ability. All right. So I'm only speak. So they mean that when I am doing affirmations, I'm only doing things that are truly achievable. All right. Like I'm not going to say something like, I can run through this wall. Right. That'll be dumb. So I'm not going to be trying to say anything like that. But if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to achieve certain goal, I got to make sure that I'm backing it up with action, because it's part of that integrity, and that's going to help build my belief too.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And so my wife and I in complete agreement on this with our kids is that integrity is so important to us. And so we know that any words that we tell our kids, we have to back it up, right? It's 100%. So we say we're going to do ABC, we have to do ABC to the best of our ability, because we want them to be able to trust our words, and then we also want them to be able to trust their words, because it's one thing to read affirmations, but if you can't believe them because you're like, well, I know I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm saying it, but I'm not going to do it. Then it's not going to work for you. It's going to have a negative effect.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, very true. I love that. I like what you said as well about celebrating as well, which is something a lot of us, including myself in the past, and I know we can all forget it in this kind of, especially if you're an achiever, right? To celebrate and win, it's on to the next thing. Whilst it shouldn't just be on to the next thing, it's about celebrating that. So, is that something you get your kids to do regularly? Celebrate or praise themselves?
Yes, praise themselves, praise each other. As a family, we try to celebrate as much as we can, because we it's so important.
Hmm.
And see, my boys, they never really played sports other than karate. So that's the main organized thing activity that they do. And so each success along the way in karate, I mean, they've celebrated, and we celebrate together, and so that helps. And then anytime they are faced with fear, we talk them through it. They achieve it. We celebrate that even more, and remind them, hey, you remember when you were afraid to hit that board and how it felt when you actually went full speed through it. And so that way, we're just programming them for success.
Oh, awesome. Love it. I love how you're reinforcing it in your kids. That's awesome. Yeah, reminding them as well. And it's
Hmm.
one of Joseph's exercise I did for a week, committing to yourself of 5 minutes a day of writing down anything you've achieved. And I don't think in the challenge it was 5 days actually, but you weren't allowed to ideally copy what you'd written in the previous day either. And I was doing that, and then your subconscious or the mind just starts searching for more and more things and going, oh
Hmm.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I like the way you're training your kids to do that already. That's awesome. Love it, love it. So
Yeah, I wish I had it growing up.
yeah, yeah. But the power is we can do it right now. Just
Hmm.
write down your wins each day, or whether that's starting small. I'm always keen on habits and starting small rather than overloading yourself. Um, but yeah, just even if it's 5 wins each day or whatever. But it's great you're getting the family to do that already. So, and then also the affirmations as well are powerful. So cool. So you mentioned before you've been a Toastmaster. I've also been a
Yeah.
Toastmaster as well.
Okay.
I was actually, yeah, I haven't done it for a while, but it was something that really helped my public speaking. And I found when I started doing it, I loved it. I was just like, and then I was a bit, not, I was a little bit shaky. I had done lots of things in my corporate job, like sort of have to speak up. And I was terrified when I first did like anything. It was like reading to like leaders and stuff like that. But it sounds like that's something that really helped your speaking confidence.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm still active in Toastmasters today, because it's like I said, it really changed things for me. Just give me that opportunity to speak, and be able to get feedback as well. Because getting that
Yeah,
feedback helps you improve. And it's like you mentioned earlier about that, having a peer group. So having a peer group of people who are working to improve their public speaking skills is beneficial. Because then I can glean on ideas from them, and model different traits that they use.
yeah, yeah, and through kind of facing the fear, you gained a bit more confidence. Is
Absolutely.
that accurate to say? Okay. And
Yeah.
these days, are there situations where perhaps you're a little bit fearful and you have to push through them?
Oh, absolutely. I face it all the time, right? It's, even as a coach, if I, making a phone call to somebody, or, to ask for, ask them to participate in this service, sometimes, fear will enter in, but that's when I really have to push through and do it and know that I can add value to that person, and that so I'm doing something that's in their best interest, not in my interest, but it's in their best interest, right? I'm going to add value to them. I'm going to help them achieve their goals quicker, right? Go further, faster. And so I have to believe that.
Mm. So yeah, looking at how you're going to give value to them, I like that. On service rather than getting caught on our own head. So I'm glad you
Mhm.
shared that, Michael, because I'm very keen to kind of always smash this misconception that like those people, sometimes people see as really highly confident, charismatic, have zero fears. There's like every human on the planet has fear. It's just like Joseph says, some who fear less, because they work through it. So the more you work through it, but it's always, as you face new challenges, it's always going to be, it's a sign of growth. So I'm glad you shared that. And when I get on a, maybe if I get on a, I'm doing less one-on-one these days, but if I get uh, go on a call for, a high ticket thing, I won't go into price or anything here, but like if I get on a call with someone, I'm going to be a bit, bit, nervous, but I'm going to go through it as
Mhm.
much as possible. So thank you for sharing that, even as, a coach and someone who works at John Maxwell. That's something that comes up for you as well. Really, really appreciate that. So, Michael, I kind of just wanted to sort of wrap up last couple of things, really. Um, is there kind of any things you would encourage someone on their personal, starting out on their personal growth journey to do, or any kind of final pointers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one would be sit down and put together a personal development plan,
Hmm.
right? And it could be very, very basic. It could be as simple as, in 2022, I'm going to read X number of books, right? Maybe you're going to read 2 books a month. Maybe you're not a reader right now. You say, well, I'm just going to read 2 books a month on personal development. That would be something simple. Or maybe you're going to listen to X number of hours per week from YouTube training, or from this course training, or an audiobook, but have some type of personal growth plan in place. And then make sure you celebrate yourself too. So as you hit your goal, celebrate it, check it off the list, celebrate it, pat yourself on the back, and just know that you're making progress. And you'll be amazed at how much growth you will have if you keep track of it, and you look back and say, man, I read 20 books this past year, or I read 100 books this past year, whatever it was, and just keep track of it. And you're going to feel so much better about yourself, knowing that you're making progress towards your goals.
Yeah, love that. Making a plan, know where you're going, else we can get lost, and
Yes.
celebrating along the way. So really pleased. The other thing I just picked up on, you said earlier, and I had one of my close coaching friends, actually I met in a coaching academy we have here in the UK, and he's actually a social skills coach for introverts, which I think is a fantastic thing to do. Um, so, I mean, for for me, I get a lot of energy being around lots of people, but um, me and him got get on like a house on fire. But we were just saying the importance of you know being accepting of who you are, and enjoying that. And it doesn't mean, because, and sometimes I've heard people identify as an introvert and think, I'm not good with people, but which I think is completely untrue. So, what would you say about someone who's perhaps more of an introvert and kind of accepting who they are?
Yeah, that's important. So I am still a natural introvert, and for years I didn't believe I was good around people,
Mm,
right? So I would be that person, at the party or at that social event, and I would make an excuse to be by myself, right? Either have to go to the bathroom, and I would be in there an extra long time, or I'm checking my phone or checking my notes or something to keep me from having to talk with people. But I had to learn that it's that we need people in our lives. And so I had to read books on people skills, books like, How to Win Friends and Influence People with Dale Carnegie, and other public speaking books, just to get myself comfortable with talking with people. And in John Maxwell's book, The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, he talks about how you have to be aware, like the law of awareness, know yourself to grow yourself. And part of that is identifying your strengths. So for me, I had to identify my strengths, and then I had to identify my weaknesses. And with my weaknesses, I had to look and see, okay, which one of those weaknesses will I need? And so for me, one of my weaknesses was public speaking, but I knew that I needed public speaking. So I had to work on that, and I still work on that today. But if I had a weakness that was in an area where it really wasn't going to benefit me, then I'll just leave it as is, right? I mean, you can outsource that weakness to somebody else. But it's so important working on those areas, like being completely aware of who you are, what your strengths are. And so I know my strengths, I kind of know what motivates me and how to keep myself motivated. And so that really helps. But you can, as an introvert still, I love talking with people. I know how to spend time with people, then go back and recharge myself because I understand myself well enough to do that. But I know it's so important to talk with people. And what I found out was, as soon as I took my eyes off of myself, right? As soon as I stopped saying, what would they think of me, or will they like me, and all that type of stuff, and I started focusing on how can I add value to this person, right? I have ideas. This person has a problem, and I have a solution. I owe it to them to speak up and share my idea with them to potentially help them.
I love it. Adding value to them. Love it. Asking that question and putting a different spin on it in that way. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Michael, it's been awesome having you on today, and thank you for everything you've shared. We really, really appreciate it. So, where can people find you if they want to find out a bit more about your work?
Yeah, so one simple place is they can go to michaelpopetraining.com. That'll take them to my website. They can learn a little bit more about me, because I do a lot of tech. I'm kind of like the coach's IT guy. So I work with a lot of speakers, coaches, trainers, helping them with technology needs, marketing needs, all that type of stuff. So yeah, so they can definitely go there and learn a little bit more about me. And also find me on social media at Michael Pope. I think I'm Michael J. Pope Jr. on most social media platforms.
Brilliant. We'll be sure to put those links in the description as well, so people can find you and find out more about the amazing work you're doing. So thanks so much again for coming on today, Michael. We appreciate it.
Johnny, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on your show.
Of course, no problem. So that concludes our episode today. And remember, work on your self-confidence every single day.